Earlier on that period of time, my mom got really sick and she passed away. So I also had an issue on my leg and the back, so I really couldn't walk at all. So they would carry me place to place. Doctors did the examination and did everything, and they said, like, we can't touch this. If anybody touches it, he's gonna die, so can't do anything. So they chose the church, just abandoned me at a church, and they left. So I'll go through my story slightly quickly, and then if you guys have a particular question in specific areas, then obviously I'll be happy to answer. So because my mom couldn't afford me and she was a single, to feed me the whole time and stuff, and she was a single mom, I bounced back and forth between my grandma and my mom since early on, and my earliest memory is about maybe 4 or 5 years old. That's when I can start remembering. And then earlier on that period of time, my mom got really sick and she passed away. So I was full-time with my grandma. And this is not in a city or anything, it's in a village. So to go to Addis from my village would have been about a 3-hour drive. Even though distance was close, but during that time it was a big deal to even go to Addis. So 3 hours away, no electricity, no water, no nothing like that. And after a period of time, my grandma noticed like I had a small problem on my back, and we didn't really think much of it. But within a year, it got really big. And then they obviously, because you're in the village and there's not really doctors, you go to traditional medicine and also you go to holy water. So they tried all of that, didn't work. And then during that period of time, which this is pretty fast, within a year within that, my grandma passed away. She was pretty old. So I moved around family to family for a few years. And then one of my aunts decided that she wanted to bring me to Addis and get me medical treatment for my back. So I also had an issue on my leg and the back, so I really couldn't walk at all. So they would carry me place to place. So she brought me to Addis, trying to get me medical treatment, and she took me to the government hospital. That's what everybody can afford. And there, the doctors did the examination and did everything, and they said, like, we can't touch this. If anybody touches it, he's gonna die, so can't do anything. So from there, they're walking out, they're speaking a different language, Oromifa, which I understood then. They said, we can't take him back because we can't afford to keep him. He's gonna be a cripple. He's gonna, they're discussing this because they're carrying me, and they thought I was asleep, so this is pretty heavy memory of mine that I have. But they discussed it and they decided to leave me in Addis. So they chose a church and they left me at a church in Addis, abandoned me at a church, and they left. So understanding what they did, obviously to my face, they said they're coming back and stuff, so because they thought I was asleep. I really was in shock, so I didn't even cry or anything for an hour. And then I started crying, and because I was young, also people felt very bad for me, so they'd give me food and they'd give me money on the street, just outside the doors of the church. And through time, they saw I had a bunch of money and food, and somebody came over and said, "Why are you crying? You have money and you have some food." And I kind of slowly explained to them what just happened. So they felt really, really bad for me. She was an older lady. So she went back to her house, got her kids clothing and some stuff for me. And she built me a small shelter right there in front of the church. And I stayed there for a period of time. And then once, after a month or so, they got permission for me to be within the gates of the church because I was young enough. So the gates of the church, if you remember today, we walked in the first gate and then there's some open area and then there's another boundary. So for people, usually every church has some form of that. So it's for people that want to come and pray there for a long period of time or holidays and stuff like that. They got permission for me to be there, and then I was there for maybe 2 months. So they would make announcements and people would give me food and stuff like that. And people were very generous to me there. But while I was there, got really, really sick from food poisoning or something we don't know. So they called the ambulance, which is the only option. And the ambulance had two choices to make. So one was to take me to the Black Lion Hospital, which is what the hospital my aunt took me to, and they said they couldn't do anything. And the other was Mother Teresa's mission. So because I was pretty young, the ambulance driver, they decided that Mother Teresa's mission was better for me because I was young and I don't have anybody. So I went to Mother Teresa's mission. There they treated me for whatever illness I had then. And then because I was too young, they pretty much became, my guardians. So I was within the Mother Teresa's mission, stayed there for a little bit. And while I was there, after I recovered, I met another kid who had the same condition as I had with my back and stuff like that there. So me and him bonded. We're there for a little bit. My sisters then said, there's this American doctor that comes here to volunteer on Saturdays. Maybe he can do something. So they introduced us to Dr. Rick Hodes. And he would come on Saturdays then to volunteer. And because he's a doctor and they're not really medically trained, they would walk around with him and he would tell them what to do for each patient. So for those of you who maybe don't understand, Mother Teresa's mission is a very big compound with like a bunch of rooms. And each room is sectioned by sickness or whatever illness you have. And in that could be anywhere from 30 to 40 beds like next to each other. So it's a few hundred people within one area. So slowly he even didn't know what to do for us. Like big case, my back was pretty collapsed. And through time though, we got to know each other. Every Saturday he would come, we'd get to know each other. And then he started inviting us to Shabbat at his house. So we got to know each other more, and then we ended up staying, like the week and stuff like that. So slowly, he wanted to help us, and then the best way to help us was to adopt us. So he adopted me and my who's my brother now, but the kid that I met there, we bonded. And then the idea was, okay, where can they get surgery? Because now we're adopted, technically we had his insurance, so we could get some treatment. And the only hospital that would accept us was in Dallas, Texas, Scottish Rite, if you guys know it. It's a big kids hospital. So they accepted us, but he didn't know anybody in Dallas. So he emailed around, like he actually called the Jewish newspaper in Dallas saying, can I put out an ad? I'm a Jewish doctor. I adopted 2 kids. They're not Jewish, but they need treatment and they need a place to stay for like 9 months in Dallas. So the lady taking the notes kind of said, okay, doctor, like this is a good story, but call this lady called Janie Schultz. She knows everybody and she'll help you. So he called her, and she, true to the word, like Janie heard the story and said, okay, I'll take them. So since 2001, the Dallas family has been like my family also. Like I go, if I'm in the US, I stop there at least for a weekend. I have to be with the family. So since then, everything, had the surgery there, came back to Ethiopia for a few years, did my school. 9th grade, I went to a boarding school in Ohio, Barnesville, Ohio, middle of nowhere. And then Greensboro, North Carolina, which is, there was a boarding school called American Hebrew Academy, if you guys remember or heard about that. It's closed now. Went there, and then while I was there, my dad couldn't make it to the US for a speech in Dallas, so I ended up going, just speak on behalf of him. And the family in Dallas said, what are you doing? What are you doing now? I'm going to this boarding school. And they said, no, come live with us. So I finished high school in Dallas at a modern Orthodox school. And then I was on March of the Living at the end of my senior year. And by the end, I was pretty touched by what happened in Poland and Israel. So I kind of bypassing said to my dad, I would love to, my friends are lucky they're going to go to Israel next year. And he said, no, if you want, we can look for a program we can afford and you could do it. So I looked around and Aardvark happened to have started, it was 2 years before I joined, I think. So I went on Aardvark for a year. And I did first semester in Jerusalem, which I was doing very intense Judaic studies because I had a bunch of questions. So I was pretty serious about that. Then the second half, I enjoyed Israel. And then I went back to the US for engineering school. I had deferred for a year to go to Israel, so I did engineering, and then about at the end of the year, I kind of said I'm not doing this the right way, because what I want to do is live in Ethiopia and do stuff in Ethiopia. But the path that I was on, I would never really make it back to Ethiopia. It would be, you finish engineering school, you want to get hired by a good company and kind of climb the ladder. And I didn't see that. Like, I literally woke up in the middle of the night, like in a panic attack, saying I'm not doing this the right way. So like within a week, I wrote my dad probably a 10-page letter explaining the whole thing. And I said, I'm going to drop out for at least 2 years, go to Ethiopia, start something in Ethiopia and see what I can do or what I need to learn, or, do it the right way. And if I need to go to business school or do something, then I'll come back, learn something, and go back to Ethiopia, which is, from the very beginning, I've always wanted to live in Ethiopia. But after moving back, obviously it's been not easy learning the curves. A few startups failed, a few startups okay. We're here, just like magic. So yeah, that's a pretty fast version of my life story, and you guys can ask any questions.
Was your birth mother Jewish or not?
No. I'm Jewish just because I'm adopted by my dad. And so when he adopted me, I was maybe 9. So one of the things and he is pretty religious, so he would, read the Torah every Saturday and stuff like that. So I would say, he's reading, I'd say, what are you reading? And, he'd teach me the stories that he's reading, and we would have conversation about it. So since then, I'm pretty Jewish, actually. Yeah.
How's your experience going to Jewish school in America and stuff like that?
So my first experience was AHA, which the boarding school I didn't like. Like, the school is fantastic. I mean, the college level facilities are fantastic, but I didn't bond with the kids, so I don't like that. So in Dallas, though, I already knew the kids from before, and the family that I was with was also well respected, so people kind of accepted us, and it was really nice. I mean, some of my best friends still are from that high school, so.
So you said that you bonded with your dad when you got to know him in the hospital and stuff. At that point, did you already speak very good English, or?
No, very slowly. English. So when I had my surgery in 2001, he adopted us in 2000, I think, and we had the surgery in 2001. So I had the surgery, and 2 months later, my brother had the surgery, or vice versa. I don't really quite remember. So that time in the U.S. is when I picked up most of the English. But some Amharic, a little bit of words in English, some translation, you make it work. Yeah.
Is your brother in Ethiopia or in the U.S. or how did it work out for both of you? I don't know.
So my brother is in Atlanta, and he just officially passed his pharmacy test. So he's a pharmacist in Atlanta officially. So he's doing well. My hope is that sometime in the future, when he's ready, he'll move back to Ethiopia, and we open up a chain of pharmacies, hopefully. Sorry.
How do you go from being on Aardvark to working with them? How did that end up to be you working this trip now and stuff?
So it's kind of a business decision for me, because I looked around to what I could start with, because I don't have any experience with business or anything. I was doing engineering school, but I was always interested in school. So in high school, I did stock trading and stuff, and then in college, I worked for a hedge fund. So I was always interested in business, so I looked around into what I could do, and with my English skill and networks in the U.S. and a little bit in Israel, I said tourism is the best, because I don't have to do the guiding. There's a lot of guides in Ethiopia. There's a lot of car companies in Ethiopia. There's a lot of those, but networking and bonding, finding the clients is the hard part, and I could do that easily. So that's why. And then as soon as I started the company and Debbie found out that I had a travel agency, she said, "Oh, we would love to send people to Ethiopia, and if you're there, why not?"
So is that conversation how the trip that Aardvark started going to Ethiopia happened?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I just I don't know if my dad told her or I told her that I started an agency, and then she just said, "Oh, she's been here before that."
So how many times this trip is how many times have you had? How many groups have been?
Ooh, six or so. The only time we haven't had one is during COVID. Yeah, 6 or 7. Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you when you were left in the church, and how common was it back then, like in Ethiopia in general, to leave children in the church back then and nowadays also? 2 parts.
Yeah, I was probably like somewhere between 6 and something to 7 years old, because I think about maybe 7.5 to 8. Because I spent a few months in Mother Teresa's mission, and I was about 9 when my dad adopted us. One of the reason for that is, one, I don't know my age, but then we did a bone age, so kind of, and then we traced everything backwards. So from 7.5 to 8 years old. And then abandoning kids at the church, that's a pretty common thing before and also even now. I guess if you're abandoning somebody, it's like the most merciful place you could do it at, because you're hoping and you're praying that other people help them for a better life. So, yeah, it's pretty common even now. Yeah.
Did you, were you able to get back in touch with any of your family when you came back to Ethiopia?
Yeah. So, 11th, my junior year in high school, I came back to Ethiopia, and during the summer, I went back to my village, and I remembered I never met I have a half brother. I never really met him. Maybe like we met once when I was there, and I remember my mom telling me his name a lot. So I just said his name to different like elders in the communities in different places, and I said, I'm looking for my brother. I was sick like this. I lived with my grandma, he lived with his dad, and just told the story again and again to different people. And they say, I think I know who you're talking about. Go tell this person. I think I know. And this took 3 days. So after 3 days, one of the guys said, I think I know who you're talking about, but he's changed his name. Come back tomorrow. So he went into like a half a day walk into the village, because there's no transportation or roads, and found my brother. And came and we look alike, and we exchanged stories and matched. And then my brother said, hey, by the way, our aunt lives very close by. So we walked into her place, and as soon as somebody walked in and said Dejene, she started like crying because they thought I was dead. So I went back, I reconnected with my aunt, and my brother right now is actually moving up. He's doing a lot of farming. I'm involved with him. We have, I think right now we have like 30-something chickens, so pretty proud of that. We've bonded through that, so pretty good. Yeah.
How long were you in like recovery for your surgery?
So I have like a whole like a 12-hour surgery, the whole thing. I have like 2 rods going down with like a bunch of screws down there. So I can't really bend my back, because like I'm only just flexing. And that took about a year. But there's no physical therapy and stuff like that. I was wearing a brace for a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Was it scoliosis?
TB. So it wasn't bent, it was more like, tuberculosis.
Do you still often does it still hurt?
No, I don't know what it was. After some time was healed, but for a long time, because also my back had collapsed, and I think I would walk like this, but like pushing my upper body up so you can have more lung capacity. Yeah.
Did you say that it was your aunt who left you at the...
Different aunt.
Okay, fine.
But they lived very close to each other, so the aunt that dropped me off, what she told them when they got back is, I put them in an NGO and she's fine, and the whole thing. So.
Have you not seen her since?
Nah.
Lives in Ethiopia?
Yeah, she lives farther now, but yeah. Yeah.
Often do you go to Israel?
Past few years, not much. It used to be at least once or twice a year. Especially once I started like entrepreneurship stuff here, I'd go to some conferences in Israel and stuff like that, but not in the past few years. Like COVID and the wars and yeah.
Do you want to go soon?
Yeah. I like Israel in general. Like one of my favorite places. I don't know if Tel Aviv I really like, but like Sfat was one of my favorite ones. I was telling him, and Haifa. Like I travel around Israel. I really liked it.
Have you ever looked into the conversion process or like had a thought about that perspective?
Yes. So I did, because one of the main reasons I studied, because everybody that has done amazing things for me in my life have been Jewish. So my dad adopted me and the whole thing, and adopting like not only me, but he has adopted 5 kids. Oh. So that was amazing to me, and the Dallas family and the Dallas community was amazing to me. So I thought about it and I studied. Even while I was in high school, I kind of didn't like the school rabbi, so I had like my own rabbi that I would study with. So I was pretty serious about that. And then in Sfat, there was Kabbalah rabbi there for a period of time, for like 2 months that I was kind of going in and out there. And after a few lessons, we learned quite a bit, and I asked him, if I convert, what about me changes? Like, is there anything like spiritually, like the soul and stuff like that? Is there a difference? Or is it just I get accepted into the Jewish community? And his answer was like, soul-wise and deep spiritual-wise, we're all equal. We're just born in different places, and we have a certain purpose. So with that, I said, conversion is not really necessary because I'm already part of the Jewish community. I mean, so that's not necessary. But the values of Judaism, obviously, important. So, yeah.
Is there like a certain part of Judaism like you really connect with, like a certain values or anything?
Well, yeah. One of the things, my dad and also in Dallas, we observed Shabbat for a long time. And then once I stopped doing it, I noticed how much of it I kind of missed out, just because quiet time with family and friends and that stuff. So, and then I went back and like started reading of why not do that, why do this, why not do, like all the rules. And we're talking about even with the wine, like why not non-Jews allowed to touch it? Which ones are they allowed to touch? And I love that. So I kind of went deep in that area. So I like the studies. I mean, obviously the stories are amazing, but Ethiopian Christianity also has that. Yeah. And then and then you can go a little bit farther into with the Christianity, the Muslim, what's the difference and stuff like that. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.